The political atmosphere tonight is volatile, and once again, Donald Trump has pushed himself into the center of a storm that wasn't even aimed at him. The Department of Justice filed a routine late-night status report in a federal case involving Trump, something that happens across countless federal cases when attorneys finalize documents shortly before a deadline. But the moment this midnight filing appeared on the federal docket, Trump erupted into a full meltdown, reacting as if the DOJ had deliberately launched an ambush. In reality, the filing was nothing more than a procedural update submitted before the cutoff time. It contained information the court required and followed the same institutional process that has existed under every administration. Trump, however, immediately interpreted the timestamp as an attack. His online posts framed the DOJ's update as a targeted maneuver designed to damage him politically, even though the court itself doesn't care about the hour it arrives. The only thing that matters is that filings meet the deadline. Inside the Department of Justice, filings often run late because internal review processes extend into the evening. Documents can move through multiple attorneys, supervisors, and compliance teams before receiving final approval. Once the review finishes, the DOJ submits, regardless of whether it is midday or 2 minutes before midnight. The meltdown Trump ignited was not about substance, it was about perception. For a man who has built his political strategy around portraying himself as the victim of a hostile system, even the most ordinary procedural act becomes a trigger for outrage. And tonight's reaction demonstrates again how deeply he relies on turning bureaucratic routine into political drama. According to new reporting from legal observers tracking the docket in real time, the DOJ's midnight filing contained no shocking revelations, no aggressive demands, and no damaging new allegations. It was simply a status update required by the court. Analysts reviewing the document noted that its timing appeared to reflect internal review delays rather than any strategic maneuver. This is common practice inside federal agencies, where attorneys finalize filings at all hours depending on when edits are complete. But Trump seized on the timing instead of the content. His team began pushing out messages claiming the DOJ waited until midnight to hit him, even though legal experts confirmed that federal filings often land late at night. It is a pattern that spans Republican and Democratic administrations alike. Courts do not draw conclusions based on timing, because timing has nothing to do with legal weight. It is the accuracy and completeness of the report that matters. Sources familiar with congressional oversight offices say staffers monitoring the case flagged the filing immediately and categorized it as routine. Nothing in the submission suggested urgency or escalation, yet Trump framed it as proof of targeting, knowing that his audience would latch onto symbolism rather than legality. That response shifted the entire narrative away from what the document actually said and toward the political drama surrounding its arrival. Across watchdog groups and legal circles, the reaction was viewed as another example of Trump distorting basic institutional functions to generate outrage. His meltdown became the headline, not the DOJ's filing, because his narrative drowned out the facts. The midnight timestamp was administrative. Trump turned it into ammunition. Understanding the mechanics behind the DOJ's filing makes Trump's reaction even more detached from reality. Federal agencies operate under strict procedural rules, and when the DOJ submits a filing, whether it is discovery status, compliance documentation, or a pre-hearing update, it is responding to court-imposed requirements. These filings often come late in the evening because attorneys must ensure that every detail meets internal standards and legal obligations. A document might undergo review by multiple divisions, including supervisors, trial teams, and attorneys responsible for handling privilege and classification issues. This layered oversight structure frequently pushes submission times deeper into the night. Federal judges rely on accurate updates and do not concern themselves with the hour they are filed. The judiciary understands that agencies work through complex review processes that do not neatly align with office hours. Congressional oversight offices also track filings without drawing conclusions based on timing. What matters is whether deadlines are honored and obligations fulfilled. The special counsel's office functions within the same system. High-profile cases often involve massive volumes of documents, evidence reviews, and cross-departmental coordination. When cases involve classified material, privilege disputes, or extensive discovery, nighttime filings become even more common. These factors are procedural, not political, But Trump takes advantage of the public's unfamiliarity with federal workflow. By portraying a midnight filing as aggressive, he transforms legal routine into political persecution. His narrative relies on misrepresenting how institutions function. The DOJ follows deadlines and internal review structures. The court monitors compliance. Congress checks for transparency. Trump reframes all of it as hostility. His meltdown emerges not from what was filed, but from his refusal to accept that these institutions do not operate according to his political calendar. After Trump publicly lashed out over the midnight filing, political reaction accelerated quickly. Trump-aligned lawmakers echoed his outrage, insisting that the DOJ's timing demonstrated bias, even though none of them pointed to any procedural rule suggesting wrongdoing. Their comments emphasized emotion over fact, feeding directly into the narrative Trump created. Meanwhile, lawmakers familiar with the mechanics of the justice system pushed back, stating that federal filings often occur in the evening and that nothing about the timestamp suggested misconduct. Legal experts criticized the politicians amplifying Trump's claims, warning that they were undermining public understanding of federal oversight. When elected officials portray routine filings as politically motivated, they erode trust in the judiciary and distort how the system actually works. Watchdog groups monitoring the case expressed concern that Trump's framing diverts attention away from substantive legal developments. Instead of focusing on issues that matter, the public becomes consumed with manufactured outrage built on timing rather than content. Several congressional aides reportedly expressed frustration that Trump's narrative forced oversight committees into defensive explanations rather than substantive analysis. They noted that when a former president misrepresents ordinary procedures, lawmakers must respond to misinformation instead of engaging in meaningful oversight. This dynamic disrupts institutional work and fuels confusion among the public. The political reaction clarified one thing. Trump's meltdown was not about the filing's content. It was about shaping a narrative. By insisting that a routine filing was a hostile act, he controlled the conversation before anyone could digest the facts. In doing so, he once again transformed standard procedure into political spectacle. The reaction to the DOJ's midnight filing intensified not because of what the document contained, but because analysts recognized a pattern that has defined Trump's post-presidency. Whenever the justice system performs basic functions, he responds with anger designed to preemptively delegitimize institutional authority. The midnight filing was simply the latest example. Analysts explained that Trump's narrative strategy relies on portraying himself as the target of an out-of-control system, even when the system is simply following procedural obligations. His meltdown serves as an attempt to reduce the credibility of any institution that holds him accountable. Experts noted that DOJ filings submitted late at night often involve revisions, compliance updates, ongoing discovery issues, or clarifications requested by the court. They are routine acts of legal housekeeping. But for Trump, such filings represent movement within a system he cannot control, and that loss of control becomes his trigger. The reaction is less about legal exposure and more about narrative dominance. If he can frame a standard filing as politically driven, he can weaken the authority of the institutions involved. Analysts familiar with Trump's operation also pointed to the psychological element. His team monitors court dockets obsessively, watching for updates at all hours. A late-night filing sparks panic because it signals that something is shifting behind the scenes, even if the shift is purely procedural. This hypervigilance results in overreaction, which Trump then amplifies into political messaging. The escalation tonight demonstrates how Trump transforms ordinary oversight into crisis politics. The system works on procedure, Trump responds with perception, and perception in his strategy always overrides fact. That tension creates a cycle of manufactured drama that overshadows the judiciary's actual responsibilities. Tonight's uproar has nothing to do with the DOJ's midnight filing and everything to do with Trump's ongoing conflict with the existence of accountability. The Department of Justice submitted a routine status report, filed properly, and delivered on time. The courts expect these updates, and the DOJ provided one. There was no ambush, no political strategy, and no coordinated timing. It was a bureaucratic action fulfilling a legal obligation. Trump turned that routine filing into a narrative of persecution because that narrative is central to his political survival. By portraying normal oversight as targeted hostility, he maintains control over his base and keeps institutions on the defensive. The DOJ will continue operating according to rules and deadlines, and Trump will continue acting as if every procedural step is a personal threat. The gap between those realities is where misinformation grows, and tonight's meltdown proves how easily a standard filing can become a political weapon in the hands of someone determined to twist procedure into spectacle.